Great. And so thank you all for joining me today at this program from the DC Office of Public Records, more commonly known as the DC Archives, discussing genealogical records held in our DC Archives division. And this is in recognition, of course, of the Emancipation Day holiday, which is tomorrow. And so I'm going to share my screen with you. And just mention that my name is Lopez Matthews Jr., and I am the state archivist, as we're calling it, state archivist for the District of Columbia. And that means that I am the director of the DC Office of Public Records and Archives. The office was established within the Office of the Secretary, February 11th, 1986, to review and approve agency detention schedules and hold the historic records of the District of Columbia. Prior to this period, these records were held in the National Archives, as DC was a part of the federal government prior to Home Rule. We received local control in 1973, and we received control of our local records in 1986. So I like to think of the DC Archives and our management of our records as one of the pillars of DC Home Rule, because it is one of the examples of the district managing its own activities, managing its own services, and controlling its own history. And so I joined the office in 2022 and have been head of it since. And we've made a lot of improvements, which I'll reference sort of later in the collection. And then I will also talk about some records related to DC emancipation and slavery, since that is the occasion that is bringing us together. And so in our records, we hold birth records, death records, marriage records, and wills. And these are records that relate most closely to genealogy. Our records, our complete collection goes back to 1792. Some people think that it starts in 1973, but it doesn't. Our collections actually go back to 1792. With the land records, and the wills actually go back to 1801. And so we do have some crisscross with the records that are still held in the National Archives, but we do hold a lot of records in the DC Archives. We have about 200,000 cubic feet of records in our collection. But for the purposes of tonight, I'm just going to talk about these records that most closely relate to genealogy, and that's the birth records, death records, marriage records, and wills. And also how you can access those records, because they are open to you, the public. And so I'll begin with the birth records. These are probably our most requested documents. The birth records begin in 1874. That is when DC decided to start documenting births. A lot of people sometimes want to request birth records prior to 1874, but unfortunately, that's where it begins, in 1874. And it has the names of both parents, the maiden name of the mother, the birth location, and I didn't put on here, but it also has the number of child it is. So say that's the 7th child of the mother, they'll document that. They'll also document the location of the birth and the father's occupation. And so there's a lot of information that you can actually get from the birth records held in the collection to support further genealogical research, because you learn a lot about the families and a lot about who they are and where they came from, because it also has the birth location of the mother and the father. And so whether they're born in DC or there are a lot of people born in Ireland, a lot of people born in Maryland and Virginia, of course, because we're so close. But there's a lot that you can learn from these birth records. And one of the things that I would like to note is that due to the update in the Public Records Law in 2018, birth records are only open after 125 years. And so I know this is a change for some of our long-term researchers or long-time researchers, because they're used to getting some of the birth records after this period. But due to the update in the vital records law, you can't access those records through us. You would have to go through the Office of Vital Records to get them. So you still can access them, but you just would have to go through vital records as opposed to coming through the Office of Public Records. And so, little change, but we work with you. We help guide you if you submit your request. Another really popular collection are death records. These also begin in 1874. And in case you're wondering why 1874 is a date, that's when the DC government transitioned into its territorial government phase. And they changed the structure of DC government during this period. And so they started to document births and deaths. It's when the first DC Health Department was created. And this newly created agency was the office that began documenting births and deaths and studying diseases. And they started to visit people's homes to give them advice about proper hygiene and how to clean their homes. DC was not a pretty place during this period. It was pretty rough living in DC during this period. And so to help manage the local operations, Congress restructured DC government and turned it into a territorial government. And so they created the Board of Health and they created the Board of Public Works to manage the streets and construction. And so all of this comes about because there is now a Board of Health that is looking to document what's happening in DC. So that's why things start in 1870. Some people wonder why, we can't get earlier records. And that's because they didn't start documenting it until these agencies were created. Now, death records began in 1874. They, of course, have the cause of death, birthplace, the location of the burial, and age. Some of them, the later ones, have parental information. So they give you a little more family history. Those start maybe in the 1920s with having parental information on the death certificates. Now, we also hold, related to death records, foreign deaths, which is a separate collection, but is there. So those are deaths of people who did not live in, lived in DC or were DC residents, but passed away in other locations, mostly Maryland and Virginia. So if you're a DC resident, pass away in Maryland or Virginia, mostly, they would send the record back to DC, and that's where those records will be held. There's also a collection of stillbirths, because those were documented as well. Death records are open after 75 years. And that is another change instituted by that update to the Vital Records Law in 2018. So today's date, 75 years ago, that's when the death record opens. And you can request that record from us, submit the form. I'll talk to you about that later. And you will get it. 3 to 5 business days. We're pretty good with fulfilling requests. So submit your request, get it 3 to 5 business days if we have it in the collection. As I mentioned, 75 years is the limit to that. After that period, you would have to go through Vital Records to request the record. Now, they do have limits on who can request the record, mostly family, but those records can be requested from Vital Records. We also have wills. The wills in our collection date back to 1801, as I mentioned. These are extremely interesting and give a lot of insight into families and family connections because they document important people, they document belongings, they document the property that people held. If you're looking at the period of enslavement, they document people who were held in bondage and willed to descendants. And so it really gives you a look into who these people were, how they lived. I was just telling someone today that the will of Oliver Wendell Holmes has about 12 codicils to it because he continually changed his will if he became angry with someone. So he says, "Oh, I'm angry with you, no more. I'm angry with you, no more." Or there's one from the period of enslavement where a gentleman mentioned that 3 or 4 of the people who were enslaved on his plantation were to not be allowed to come into contact with his wife. Now, we don't know why he mentioned these 4, but he said these 4 are to not have any relationship or any connection to my wife. You can purchase 4 more people for her, but these 4 are not allowed to have any contact with her. And so, you can speculate, you can just wonder why he said you can't have any relationship with these folks, but all of that is documented in the collection, and it's really good to support genealogical research. Now, these are open a lot longer than most of our genealogical records. They date back to 1801, but the records held in the building end in 2011, and we routinely receive more records from the DC Superior Court, which holds the rest. And so you can put in a request for the will, and we'll do a search, and if it's located, we will provide you with a copy. Now, one of the things that kind of tricks people up is that the will may have been probated. And if the will is probated, it may be with the DC Superior Court Marriage Bureau. They hold marriage records that are not open to the public, and they hold, well, it would actually be the probate division. I'm sorry, that's not right. I'll have to fix that slide. But they would be with the probate division of the DC Superior Court. And so you would have to contact the probate division to get a copy of that will. But you can take a chance, submit it with us, and we'll check to see if it's in the building. And if we have it, we'll send it to you. And if not, we'll direct you to the probate division to request that will. But very fascinating collection. Now, marriage records are also a really good collection for genealogical research. As I mentioned, documentation begins a little later. The marriage records don't begin until 1870 with records of marriages. We have the records of recorded marriages, so we don't have certificates per se, but we have the record that documents the marriage. And it documents the bride and groom, their ages, where they live, and who the officiant was, and documents the date of the marriage. I actually found my great-grandparents' marriage record in the DC archives. They actually married in DC. And so the marriage union that created me is held in the DC archives because my great-grandmother was born in DC and her family was in DC. Her name is Annette Lomax, and she was born and raised in DC. And then she married my great-grandfather, Samuel Matthews, who was from Anne Arundel County, Maryland. And they married in DC. So I was actually able to find my own family by looking through the records held in the DC archives. Now, prior to 1870, there is an index listing of marriages. And so you can still find marriages that happened before 1870. It's just not a certificate, not a record of the marriage per se, but we have a listing of those marriages. So we do have documentation that it happened. And sometimes they have little notes with the marriages to indicate something special. For example, there's a couple who were married after being unofficially married for 50 years. They were both enslaved. They were not allowed to marry, but in 1862, after the Compensated Emancipation Act, they were able to legally get married. And so they note in the listing that they're getting married after being together for 50 years. And, I think stuff like that really stands out. And that's just an amazing testament to the livelihoods of those who were enslaved and those who sought to have a life despite their enslavement. Really speaks to their fortitude and determination to have lives even while living under that tough situation. And so I told you what it says, so I've already talked about that. So we do have other records that relate to genealogy, and that would assist with your genealogical research. We have indentures of apprenticeship, 1812 to 1893, and apprenticeship was a legal relationship where a person would apprentice a young person to them to teach them a trade. And this was a legal relationship. And so you learn about who the person was, who their family was, where they came from. So it gives you a lot of information on the person who was apprenticed. And so you can use that to find families that way and find more information related to families. We also have guardianships and administrative bonds, which, of course, they document people placed in guardianships, who their parents were, where they came from, and who they were placed with. And so this helps with genealogical research because it shows, okay, well, this person was listed as their parent, but we know they're not their parent. They were their guardian. And so where did they come from? And so that's what guardianships and administrative bonds provide. And we also have administration cases, I'm sorry, which document people who didn't agree with guardianships or bonds or indentures. And so those also give information related to genealogy, because it tells you about the family, tells you about what they're doing and what they and where they went. So very helpful, not necessarily on the beaten path, but gives you insight. You find this information, you go, oh, okay, well, now I have these names. Let me go look at the birth record. Now I have these names. Let me go check the death record to find out more about these people, more about their families, and trace them. Now, how to request these records? Big question. How do we get them? We have online forms on our website, opr.dc.gov/request records. You can request birth records, death records, marriage records, and wills on this site. So our major genealogical records can be requested through this site. Send it to us. It gets sent to one of our archivists, and we will do a search and get back to you within 3 to 5 business days. And if it's going to take longer, we'll let you know. We'll let you know why. But we do our best to make sure that we have it within that time frame. We also have a digital archive, which we opened just last year. And it has digitized birth and death records beginning in 1874 and the marriage index. And so all of our open marriages, the indexes are on the website, so you can search for those. So say you don't know the exact date of the marriage, you can use the index to find the date of the marriage. We also have that listing that I told you about, the one from prior to 1870. That listing is searchable and is on our website. So you can go search that database for people. So that's available on the site. And that's archives.dc.gov. That is our digital archive. Now, it will hold other records related to the city. For example, we have land records, a lot of land records. Those are available on the site. So you can search and find out about your home, who owned it, permit records, things like that. So the beginning part of the process is available on the digital archive. So you search for the land record card that gives you the location of the records, and you can submit that request to us, and we will start your search for building information, for land record information, because that's a combination between us and the Department of Buildings. And so that is the first step in researching your home. And so that is available online. Over time, more and more will become available. We have about 10,000 birth records and 10,000 death records available on the site. That is increasing as we complete more. We get support from student interns. So shout out to our students because they are helping us move that forward and make that available on the site for you. They are searchable because we are typing up metadata to make them searchable. And so archives.dc.gov is very helpful. It also takes you back to, there's also a link back to the OPR site so you can request the records that you find if you want something that's not on the website yet. It's in the process of being digitized. We're moving. Small staff, but we're small but mighty. Some of them are here, so I thank you all for coming. I appreciate you. But we do our best with the staff that we have to make these items available to you because we're dedicated to the preservation of history and making the stuff available for everybody. And like I mentioned, not everything is available yet to the public. There are laws that restrict some things. And so if it's not available to us, you're more than likely going to have to go to either the Office of Vital Records or the DC Superior Court. For marriage records, it's the Marriage Bureau. For probated wills, it's the Probate Division. And birth and deaths are the Office of Vital Records. And they will make sure that you get them. So, try to be available, try to be helpful to you, and help you with your genealogical research. Now, as I mentioned, this is a program related to Emancipation Day. So I couldn't end this discussion without telling you about specific records related to slavery and emancipation that we have in the DC archives. And in case you did not know, the DC Compensated Emancipation Act was signed by President Abraham Lincoln, went into effect April 16th, 1862, and it was a precursor to the Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln had the idea that he wanted to provide compensated emancipation to show that it could be done in a way that did not completely take away property from slaveholders. He wanted to try to appease slaveholders and show that they would not lose everything when their enslaved people got their freedom. So he said, well, we will compensate you. And so they brought an appraiser down from Baltimore, my hometown, always trouble. They brought a appraiser down from Baltimore who appraised the people. And those prices are documented in a document that we have in the DC archives. There's a listing of everyone who was listed as getting their freedom under the Compensated Emancipation Act. We also have a listing of manumissions and certificates of freedom. We have a document that shows those. We're working on making each of those available electronically, but they're not available right now electronically, but we're working on making them available electronically. So that's one of our in-progress projects, two of our in-progress projects, actually. So those give you insight into who these enslaved people were, particularly the manumissions and the free papers, because they give you descriptions of who the people are, what they look like, their ages, skin tone, things like that. The listing of the freedmen has the price and things like that. There are petitions for payment that are held in the National Archives that you can look at that gives a description of those individuals and who their families are. So this is where our collection and the National Archives collection kind of overlap and connect. So you could find the name in our listing and then go to the National Archives and request the actual petition to learn more about who the people are. As I mentioned, the Marriage Licenses Index also provides information related to who the people are and if they were enslaved, because they do document if they were Black, they document sometimes document if they were enslaved. So not a lot, but sometimes you'll find a gem or two that shows that they were enslaved and who they were married to. And so it gives you a little insight into family history through those records. So DC Compensated Emancipation Act, very important, move definitely DC forward, and one of the pillars of freedom in our nation. So very happy to recognize this day, and hopefully, tomorrow, everyone will do something to recognize DC Emancipation Day, since today's the 15th and tomorrow's the 16th. And so thank you for your attention. We are available through our digital channels. There's a virtual program, so you get digital channels. We have our telephone number. You can give us a call. We do answer the phone. Our website for requests is opr.dc.gov. There is a link to the digital archive there. There's also a link to request the records there. And our email address is archives@dc.gov. And we will write you back. And we will give you as much support as we can. And so with that, I'm going to end my presentation. And I'm going to see if anyone has any questions. If you have a question, raise your hand and I'll let you unmute, and we will have a discussion. I don't like to talk too long because I want to give time for people to ask questions. So any questions? Any questions? I'll take anybody. You're silent. Well, I will keep talking since no one has a question. I will tell you some of our frequently asked questions. Some people ask, why there aren't certain records held. And most often it's because the record wasn't produced. They didn't produce records like they did today, like they do today. You'll sometimes see discrepancies between the index and the certificate. Names are misspelled. They did not put the name of the child on the early birth records. So you need to know the name of the parents. And so we do, you have to go, okay, this is the last name of the father. Generally, that's the family name that they kept. And so that's why. So if you have a question, just let me know. Raise your hand and I'll give you the ability to unmute. So my friend Sybil, do you have a question? I'll give you the ability to unmute if you have a question. Just let me know and I'll let you unmute. Because we're open to the public, so you gotta make sure you keep a little control of your Zoom meeting. Don't want to be Zoom bombed. Okay, so I will ask you to unmute so you can unmute yourself. Yes, there you are.
Hi, Lopez.
Hello, hello.
My ancestor is one that got his freedom through
Nice.
this act.
Nice.
And my comment is, he was living on a farm in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So some people, if you have ancestors in Maryland or Virginia, they may have gotten their freedom through this act. What it was is that his slave owner had two residents. He had a resident in DC because he had a business and a house in DC. And he had a farm in what is now part of Loudoun, Virginia. So if people know that, part of Virginia used to be part of DC, and then there's a lot of people that had two different residents. Like even in Maryland, there are some people that had, we would call it like country estates in Maryland, where their slaves actually worked, but they also because of a job, they had a resident in DC. So what they did is they said, well, I'm a DC resident, even though because they wanted the money. Let's put it down. So if you have a resident that's close to DC, it's best that you check the list, and they may be on the list.
Yeah, they may be. And there are some listed as being, there are several people actually listed as being from Maryland. Well, the slaveholder was listed as being in Maryland and Virginia, seeking compensation under the act. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting list as it comes together. It's just very interesting to see how they priced people or didn't price people, and some of the things that they noted as they were documenting and providing funds.
Well, they had to prove that they were healthy.
Yeah.
The government was not going to give them any money if they weren't a healthy slave. That's one reason why they gave descriptions of them. And also they had to give their ages, and that determined how much money the government was going to give the slave owner.
Very true. So we do have a historic business license. I see Patrick put a question in the chat. We do have historic business licenses held. We do have charters, historic. And so we do. So you can reach out to us. For that, maybe send an email to archives@dc.gov, and we can start that request for you. Do a little research and find that for you. So that would be an email request. As far as the listing, yeah, they're actually very helpful. Last year, MSNBC actually did a segment on one of the 6 Black families that received compensation under the DC Compensated Emancipation Act. They, and the name, of course, just left my head, but and one of their descendants was actually a major figure at Coppin State, which is my alma mater. Gabriel Coakley, yeah, the Coakley family, which received funds under the Compensated Emancipation Act because he purchased his family to give them their freedom, but because he purchased his family, he was still listed as their slaveholder, and so he used that to get money under the Compensated Emancipation Act. And then he used that money to support his family, send them to school, purchase homes. So he used that money to set his family on the path to success. And so that's one of the great stories that comes out of these records related to the Compensated Emancipation Act. And there were 6 Black families that received money under the act. So interesting stories that come out of these records. I think some of my favorite of the birth records are just some of the interesting names. Like there's a man named Washington Francisco, which I just love that name. Like, what kind of name is Washington Francisco? But then also you see just interesting figures. There's a man who was the architect of the Capitol. He had a child born in DC, and so they document that. And so it's like, oh, the architect of the Capitol, wow. Or a member of the Navy, or there's one actually that says, due to the circumstances of the child's birth, they didn't document anything related to the parents. They just said there was a baby born in this alley street and nothing else. So we knew there's a baby born that day in that alley, but nothing else is documented because of the circumstances of the child's birth, which is very interesting, because now we'll never know who it was or what they got up to in life, or who the parents are. There are some that you see, not many, but there are a couple that have addendums attached to it where the person wanted their name on their birth record. And so they went to court and had it attached to the birth record, their name, because as I mentioned, they don't have any names of the child. They just have the parents' information. And even when you go on our digital archive, you'll see that the title is Baby Williams or Baby Johnson or Baby some other last name. And we just base that on the family name just because we needed to have a name for the baby. So that's what we did general. So any documentation on the establishment of DC public schools or their records of students. So those records are held by our sister institution, the Sumner School. So the Charles Sumner School is the archival repository of DC public schools. And so they hold those records. We do work together quite a bit. We partner together. And so we do partner and we do provide some support to them, but they are there in the Sumner School, providing access to these documents. And so you can reach out to them. I probably should have their information, but I don't have it right now. But you can look them up. They have a pretty good website. And they have yearbooks and records and cards and things like that. That can access. Student records are not public until after 75 years. So you can request your record, but other people can't request your record. So that is the limitation over there with student records, that 75 years, they're closed to the public for privacy reasons. So they figure you're good, and, well, you may have passed away after 75 years. So they feel like that's a good amount of time to make them open.
Is that a law, Dr. Matthews? Or
Yes,
is
that
that
is a federal law. Yeah, that's a federal law that those records can't be open for 75 years.
Yeah, because I wanted to find out if there's a discrepancy whether somebody graduated from Condoza or Dunbar, but they never got back to me.
Oh.
You have to email Sumner, but they never got back to me.
Oh.
So could you give them a ring and say they need to? I'm not the only person. I'm not the only person.
Well, send me an email and I'll say, hey, I got this email, and I'll forward it over. Now, I can't guarantee the response, but I can send it over.
Okay.
You know, I'll do what I can. So we don't necessarily create special collections. We just deal with government records as they're submitted to us. Since DC Public Schools has their own archive, we kind of leave them. So the question was, does your office curate or create special collections based upon request? And is there any partnership with the Museum Sciences program at Duke Ellington? We actually don't partner with Duke Ellington. Sometimes I'll go speak to schools and tell them about history, or we'll partner with, like we partner with DC Public Schools for their real world history internship. And so we do have a high school student that will come in and work with us and learn about archives and learn about document preservation. So they'll come in and work with us. Our current student is working on digitizing official photos from the Board of Commissioners era. So he's digitizing those photos. Our student prior to that worked with the Office of Emergency Preparedness Records, which documented events in DC in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He actually won his school's DC history contest based on the records that he worked with at the archive. So I was excited about that. But so we partner in those ways. We do create, or we're working to create more subject guides that'll direct you to records related to certain topics. Like we do have a guide, and I'm going to get it now because I should have had it for you. But we do have a guide on records related to slavery in the District of Columbia. I'm going to put that guide in the chat for you, just so you can have that. We don't have a volunteer program because we are a small operation. So we don't really have the space, unfortunately. Now we are working on a building for the DC Archives. It is slated to go up at the University of the District of Columbia. That will be one of the largest archives in the country. While it is not officially a state, DC does do the work of a state. And so we produce the same amount of records that many states do. And so that requires a large archive to preserve that information. So we are working to build a new DC archive on the campus. It's going to be located on the campus of the University of the District of Columbia. And we will have space to do a lot of things. But right now we're located on Naylor Court, as you saw on our first on my first slide. It's not that big, so you know, you gotta make do. But at times we can't take volunteers. When will you break ground? That's a very good question. That is a very good question. Right now we are doing we've completed interior demolition of building 41 on UDC's campus. And right now they're beginning to shore up the garage, which is underneath building 41, so that we can meticulously take down building 41. Because since it is over top of a garage, we have to be a little more careful with how we bring it down. And also it's on an active campus, so we have to be careful bringing down the building. So it's going to take a little more work. We can't just implode it. So it's taking a little longer to get that together, but it's coming. Newspaper clips from Washington Star and Post for small daily, weekly papers. So those, for those, we direct people to the Washingtoniana collection, or I think they call it the People's Archive now at DC Public Library. So that's our sister institution. And so for those types of things, we direct people over there because we hold government records. So if it was produced by government agencies, we would hold it. If it's produced by the public, like a newspaper would be, that's held by DC Public Library. So that's kind of how I tell people to segment the various repositories that relate to DC history. So we hold government records. DCPL holds more public records. DC History Center has manuscript collections and individual collections. So that's kind of a way to delineate between each of the institutions. Now I do have some questions. Looking forward to seeing the progress partnership with UBC. Very nice. Do you extend your outreach virtually beyond the immediate DC area, working with communities outside of the District of Columbia? I do, at times. Actually, I talk to anybody who wants me to talk to them because I love history, I love preservation, I love documents, and I love talking about it. So I do make myself available if someone wants to chat. And yes, you do need an appointment to come do research because we want to make sure that what you're looking for is actually there. Because of that overlap with the National Archives, sometimes you might come looking for a record and it's actually at the National Archives, and we really don't want to waste people's time. And sometimes also we have to pull the record for you to see. So it's extremely helpful to put in an appointment request because, you know, you might pop up there and then you don't get what you want because we weren't ready for you. It's a huge collection. Even our Naylor Court facility is 40,000 cubic feet, and that's a lot of records to go through. And so, because our records are stored at Naylor Court, in Suitland in Maryland, Philadelphia, Boston, and St. Louis. So our records are pretty diversified geographically because of the size. So, yeah, but we're working on our new building. But thank you for your question. They are held with NAR. Yes, we do work with the National Archives to store records. Because they have a facility that is suitable for storing archival records. One of the things that we did ensure is that the records are stored in facilities that are up to archival standards and that they can be protected. So. But they are still in our custody, if that makes sense. So they're not with the National Archives. They're in our storage in the facility, if that makes sense. I just want to be clear on that because sometimes that causes some confusion when you hear that they're stored with the National Archives. They're just stored there in our storage. So they're still in our space that we lease from the National Archives. So it's still in our collection. It's just in their building. But sometimes people are directed to the archives to get material that might be out there, but you can't get access to it because it's not in their collection, it's in our collection. And so we actually make it a point of learning the NARA collection so that we can help guide researchers so they aren't lost trying to figure out where to go. Other question? Well, I'll give it a moment. There are no other questions. I will put our email in the chat. I would say email me, but I'll just forward it to the person who can actually help you. So I will put the email in the chat, archives@dc.gov, so that you can get assistance. You know, you email me directly and I'll just send it to the person who actually does it. So email that email. It is active, it is checked, and we will do our best to fulfill your request if it's there. And if it's not there, we'll let you know. So sorry, could not be located. Because remember, DC existed for a long time and we didn't exist until 1986. So we had to make sure to bring everything. All right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate you. Remember and recognize Emancipation Day, DC Emancipation Day. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions, if you have any requests, fill out the form or email us at archives.dc.gov. So thank you so much. And follow us on Twitter, because sometimes we put out interesting things from time to time. And the recording will be on our YouTube page, because we do have a YouTube page. Look up DC State Archives. Because we're rolling with that DC statehood thing. There is even a presentation about our new building on there, so you can see what it looks like so far. All right, everyone, have a great night. And